Hi, folks. Here we are again on CircuitCast with AI Connect. Today, I have my esteemed guest here, Vivian Yip. Vivian is a nationally recognized midterm rental expert and founder of Crew Homes and Hestia certification. Midterm rentals is an important and less discussed part of the hospitality rental market, and I'm excited to have her here today to talk about it in more detail. After seven-figure high-pressure years launching iPhones and Apple, Vivian left the corporate world to build this property MTR portfolio. Now she's helping hosts worldwide create predictable, high cash flow rental business through proven systems. Vivian, thank you for joining us today and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Vivian, I think every person's journey, and yours in particular, is quite interesting. Tell us a little bit about how sort of your trajectory. You didn't start out in this space; you came to this space. Tell us a little bit of the story.
When I think about it, it's sort of a full circle moment for me. First of all, when I was in high school, I actually had the chance to work in a hotel and I absolutely loved it. It was an internship over the summer while living in Hong Kong. And then also growing up, my mom was a bank executive. So we grew up in corporate housing. So I lived in corporate housing a little bit in Vancouver, a little bit in Toronto, and then for 5 years in Hong Kong. And it's a model that's been around for a long, long time. We just call it something different now. And I guess while I was working, I worked at large brand names like Tetra Pak, like Growy America, like Apple. And through that time, I understood what it means to possess and work in a high quality brand experience. And I've basically taken those principles from my corporate world into what I do today, which is furnished rentals. And the most obvious feature about me is that I don't have any hair. And I'm sure a lot of people that are able to chime in or dial in from YouTube or whatever are probably curious about what happened. Well, for me, I'm very, very lucky. I have my health and I have alopecia. So, alopecia is an autoimmune disorder which causes your hair to fall out. For me, I'm pretty sure that the enormous amount of stress I was facing while working at Apple, and I want to stress, I loved working at Apple. The job I was doing was not the right time or the right role for me. And I was launching iPhones during a pandemic. Long story short, while I was working in corporate, I always knew that I wanted something more. I always knew that I wanted to own real estate because I see that as a path to financial freedom. And I always fantasized while investing in real estate and working that one day I would have a portfolio of homes that would pay me passive income and I could just travel the world and have fun. And unfortunately for me, when my hair fell out, I just kind of fast forwarded that journey. And the way I was able to fast forward that journey was, I bought real estate while I was working with my W-2 income. And by furnishing it and adding furniture into the properties, providing a hospitality experience, I was able to amplify my rental income and eventually create a paycheck for myself, which allowed me to leave my corporate job. So that's sort of the gist of how I ended up here.
So you're here with me today, but are you actually living that dream of jet setting around the world, or is that still something you're working towards?
I would say I'm partly there. Say, for instance, last year in 2025, like my parents are elderly. My dad's 84, my mom's 79 or 80 this year. And last year, I was able to leave to go to Hong Kong for 2 weeks and hang out with them. And I didn't open my laptop once. I have a coaching program, I have real estate business, I have everything, but I was able to automate and systematize a lot of my business so that I didn't even open my laptop once. I felt comfortable being around the world on the other side of the world in another time zone and not worried about missing out. The same year, my parents decided they wanted to go on this whirlwind trip through Europe, and I joined them for 11 days, 3 cities a day, hopping on and off buses and into hotels different nights. And again, I was able to spend a lot of time with them. So I didn't have to ask anyone for time off. Not even my husband or my kids. They're super generous with allowing me to do whatever I want to. So I'm not fully there yet, but I get to do what I want.
So, when you were speaking a few moments ago, you mentioned when I was working, and what you really meant was when you were working in the corporate world, right? When you were working for somebody else, because I suspect today you're still working
I work
very
a
hard,
lot.
I'm sure.
Yes.
So actually leads me to that. I mean, You've left a more traditional corporate, pressure cooker, and now you're doing this thing where you're working for yourself, you're running your businesses. Tell us a little bit about what a day in the life of Vivian Yip is today.
Ooh. Um, I usually wake up around 5 o'clock in the morning and I'm laying in bed working because that is when my mind is clear. I don't have emails blowing up. I don't have Slack messages going off. And that's kind of when I'm thinking about things. And I've spent a lot of time working on my social media because my social media presence has actually landed me a lot of business. So I work on that at least for an hour. I might go back to bed. Then I will have morning meetings with my team and or other people in the business and work through our website, work through coaching stuff, work with my students, work with insurance companies. I mean, it can go in any which way. Recently has been a little bit tougher because we did lose a staff member to, he went off to his dream job. So I can't fault him for that. So I've had to retrain and it's been a lot, but it's been fun. And I work for myself. I don't consider it work. I consider it building my business.
Tell us a little bit about the businesses that you're running and the team that you work with to run those businesses.
I never intended to have this many businesses, but sometimes they evolve. So with the real estate growth, like personal wealth, my husband and we buy real estate, flip properties. That's one business. I'm more passive on that right now. I have my coaching business, and my coaching business evolved when I realized that there is a huge knowledge gap in this midterm rental strategy. It's not just about hospitality. There's actually a supply chain strategy behind it that a lot of people don't understand, which has helped me with my property management company. So I have coaching, I have my property management company. We have about 25 properties right now. Last year we scaled back a few properties just to make room for growth. And so we have 25 properties that we actively manage. And then on top of that, I have Crew Homes. So Crew Homes is my B2B platform. It's a private network of other Airbnb hosts that want to host these extended stays. And a lot of times the clients that are at Crew Homes, they're doctors, attorneys, real estate investors, and they don't have time to make cold calls to insurance companies. And maybe they only have one property and those insurance companies don't care to talk to them because they have one property. So I've built a private network, a platform where anyone with a single family home furnished property can get a free listing. And if we get hits or inquiries from these insurance companies or even the insured homeowners that they need housing in a particular area, then we can make those matches there.
What's your strategy for connecting with them, for accessing them?
The strategy is number one, being easy to do business with. Number two is having an inventory that they can choose from. So I've spent the last 3 years aggregating inventory into a database and building a brand so that I can easily work with homeowners when I call them. I've so often I call people and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you're calling me, Vivian. I've wanted to work with you." And I'm like, "Hey, well, here I am. I'd like to work with you because I have a homeowner that needs temporary housing." That building that brand has helped me break down that initial awkward barrier that happens a lot when people are making cold calls on this kind of business. I have a team that's constantly calling the insurance companies. I was already doing it for my properties. So why not just call and tell them I have over 1,000 properties to choose from? And it just makes it easier to be easy to do business with. So when a homeowner adds their property to our website and it gives us visibility to their calendar, it gives us visibility to their properties and their photos. And that way we can just create a proposal really quickly and easily as long as the property is available.
And what's the sort of geographic coverage of your property portfolio?
Yeah. So my property management company is Hestia 360. We're local to Austin only at this moment. And then Crew Homes is nationwide. So anybody in the country in the US can add their property to our website and have a free listing there. There's no cost, but there's also no obligation on either end, right? You can't just you can add your property to our website, but we'll call you when there's a match. Like we're not actively promoting anybody's properties because right now we just don't have that capability.
So, just out of curiosity, how do you? I mean, if somebody's putting their property on your site and they're giving you access to their calendar, so to speak, how do you handle the potential that they're listed on other platforms and those calendars could collide?
So we're not doing instant booking on our website. It's still with the insurance clients, it's still a lot of hand holding. There's often calendar availability checks. We might have to work with the host. Maybe that host wants to host a 6-month guest, but they already have a couple reservations in the future that they might want to cancel or rearrange them. And we don't do instant booking. It's still a very old school way of doing business because a lot of the families, well, first of all, the adjusters have to approve the rate, then the families will want to go look at the property. If the property works out, then great, we move forward. But oftentimes they might say, oh, we need no stairs, or there's not enough parking, or the yard isn't fully fenced, things like that that they get to visually see when they arrive that might pivot the deal into a different direction.
So that's sort of one of the unique things about this midterm rental space, right? Because somebody renting for, a short time maybe can overcome some of those barriers because they're only living with it for a few days or a week, right? But here they're living in the property for some period of time, right?
Yeah, which is why I'm so passionate about the Hestia trust certification because I'm literally helping people move into properties that I never set eyes on. And you and I have stayed at Airbnbs before. We know that the quality can be all over the place. And I really value the relationships that I spent the 3 years building, which means that before we move any client in, we actually send an inspector to physically go check the property. Number one, is it the property that we expect it to be? Like, is it what it was described to be? Is it clean? Is it well maintained? They'll go through the home and check that the AC cools, that the heat heats, that the water pressure's there, there's hot water. These are basic inspection things that corporate housing companies have been doing for the last 50 years. The same kind of quality standards that I moved into when I was a kid doing like living in corporate housing. So that is how the quality trust standard works is to inspect the homes before someone moves in.
So it really deals with that. The pictures were taken right after the place was painted and it was all staged nicely 5 years ago. And there's been 1,000 people through there since then and low maintenance. So that sort of solves that problem by
Right.
making sure that's not the case, right?
And it's not always perfect because a lot of the times these families want to move in ASAP. Like this week, I had a family that had been, hanging out with their friends in their home for the last 5 days before I was able to find them anything. And then when I found them something, they moved in immediately, but I got the inspection done the morning of. And turns out the stove needs to be replaced because two of the burners don't work anymore and it was a little bit dirty and then we had the snowstorm. So it's not perfect, but at least we were able to catch it and be proactive about it afterwards, like immediately, as opposed to allowing the guest to feel like they made a mistake, but rather that they feel like they're working with someone that is helping them get improve their experience.
Right. So you got them housed and they know that whatever small problems are there, you're going to work with them to get them worked out to their satisfaction.
Correct.
So that was an interesting story. Can you tell us a little bit about sort of, the typical client journey and what your typical client looks like?
My typical client is a family that lives in a single family home, and they're often surprised by an insurance issue. So there's typically two ways, two directions. I mean, there's multiple, but the two primary directions is a water intrusion issue where there's water damage throughout the home, either instances where someone left the tub running or a pipe burst in the home during cold weather or even a pipe in underground from the city, something was being done and it like flooded the house. That's one area. The second area is a house fire. In both cases, that family had no idea yesterday that they would need temporary housing. So it's a very last minute thing. And so the journey will be they call their insurance adjuster and they'll call a water mitigation company at the same time. And they'll try and rectify the issue to minimize any more further damage. Then the insurance adjuster will determine whether or not they can live in their house or not. And if no, then they'll put them in touch with a relocation company. The family does not have to always go with a relocation company. They can always work with local housing providers as well. And I actually recommend that option because if you work with a local housing provider, you can easily tour the property better. You're working with someone local, and that person or that local company is not taking a share of their insurance benefits. And then, but the other way though is that if they're stressed and they don't want to deal with having to find their own housing, which can be pretty stressful, especially with some landlords requiring like a 1 month deposit or a no pet policy, whatever it is, it can be very stressful. So the other alternative is to take advantage of the insurance relocation companies, and they will work with providers like us as well. So and find housing and arrange, but it just does take longer because there's that whole supply chain of people that you have to go through in order to find the right home. So once they determine that it's the right house, then the family can move in. Usually they pay a deposit. The family's responsible for the deposit, and then the insurance company will pay for the housing.
Interesting. So is the majority of your business insurance, or is it a mix? If you had to say percentage wise what the mix is, what's the other group and how does that mix split out?
It's so hard to say. It changes from time to time. There's just no forecast for insurance housing. There really isn't a forecast for insurance housing because, like I said, nobody knew yesterday that their house would burn down.
Yeah.
The only forecasts might be like a hailstorm or a hurricane or some kind of tornado that comes through. But again, that's really,
Even
really
then, you don't have a lot of notice, right?
yeah, even then it's very, very hard to forecast. I do have 2 channels, right? My first channel is Hestia 360. That's my local property management company. I consider that my B2C channel, right? Business to consumer channel. We're listed on Airbnb. We do direct bookings. We're listed on Verbo. We deal with the end guest there. Crew Homes is B2B only. So it's a platform where we let owners enlist and then we present those properties to the businesses that use furnished housing. And that's B2B only. So anything you see on Crew Homes, I'm not renting that out from anybody on the street. It's only vetted clients that we get through the insurance program.
Okay, interesting. When you just changing gears a little bit, when you think about, sort of the companies in your day to day, what is the single largest challenge?
Uh, well, with Hestia 360, I feel really grateful that I've pretty much built that business to run without me. I only spend about 10% of my time on that business, just handling any escalations. But because I'm a systems person, I have a supply chain background, operations background, and I've built that business to pretty much run itself. The hard part is probably building crew homes because there's a whole education that needs to evolve with midterm rentals that a lot of people are naive about. They keep running they keep running a short-term rental strategy into their midterm rental calendar, and they wonder why they're not making money. So, this is aside from the big houses, like the short-term rentals with the pickleball courts, with the pools that sleep 25 properties, I'm not competing with that. That stuff is great, and that stuff should stay as a short-term rental, but there are plenty of homes out there that are just a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in an urban environment that are struggling to get booked right now because travel habits have changed. People are going back to hotels. So what are you going to do differently? You got to adjust your strategy. There's a lot of education that's lacking and people are afraid to open their calendars. So if you think about someone that's lost their home to fire, the first thing they're going to think about is where am I going to sleep tonight? Where are kids going to sleep tonight? And the easiest way is like I can go to 2 hotel rooms for a family of 5 and their dogs, or I can book something on Airbnb, but I know that I need something for 6 months. And I know I want to be close to my own neighborhood
Right, because my kids are going to school or whatever the case may
or
be,
to
right?
grandma's house after school, whatever. Therefore, it's really important for hosts to know the science behind how that mentality works, how to open up your calendars without getting bookings in between. There's an entire strategy behind it. I bet my career on midterm rental strategy. So I studied everything that I could, and there's a lot of education involved in how to do midterm rentals correctly, so that you can stop those chasing those weekend guests and start attracting those guests that are staying 2, 3, 4 months at a time.
So do you have a platform that provides that sort of best practices information to people who are subscribing to, say, Crew Homes, or how does that work? How do you
Yeah,
provide that education?
as soon as someone creates an account on Crew Homes, they can add their listing, but they're also invited to watch a masterclass. That masterclass will give them an idea of how midterm rentals work and why so many midterm rentals fail when they're trying to transition from short-term rental strategy.
So it certainly sounds like, if somebody has a short-term rental, it's not performing as it should, and they're looking for ways to monetize that more effectively or more continuously going forward, that they should be coming to Crew Homes and talking to Vivian Yip and getting that masterclass in how to do it, no matter where they are in the US. Would that be safe to say?
I mean, I discovered midterm rentals by accident as well, right? I started as a short-term rental, and then when the pandemic hit, I had to transition to something more stable. And that's when I discovered midterm rentals. I got a booking for a family that was building a house. They stayed for 3 months. Then I got a construction team that stayed for 7 months. And then when I got back on Airbnb to try and broaden my ability to get capture bookings, I was like, "Oh my god, I'm getting bookings 6 weeks in advance, and now I've got this huge gap in my calendar that I need to fill." I was getting more stressed, making less money, and then I understood the science behind it and the tools that I could use to control that. And now I'm able to get back to back to back bookings and mix between short-term rental and midterm rental hybrid on one calendar.
What do you see for your businesses and also for the industry in general as we look forward over the next 2 or 3 years? What do you see the pressures and the trends?
Well, I just came back from a conference where I was a speaker at IMN, and I was roommates with some very, very successful short-term rental realtors. The trend is into bigger homes, gathering spaces. So if you're in the short-term rental space and your property sleeps 12 or more people, you're probably going to be okay. But the smaller homes, the most saturation is happening at the 1, 2, 3 bedroom level. And you should probably find an alternative way to create a more agile business to straddle both between short-term rentals and midterm rentals, because midterm rental demand is there. Most people don't realize that 25% of nights booked on Airbnb are for midterm stays. So if you don't know how to position yourself for it, you're leaving a lot of money on the table, and you're also not experiencing that freedom of time that midterm rental hosts get. We're now dealing with one guest every month as opposed to 4 or 5 sets of guests every month.
Yeah. And when these bookings happen, I mean, you mentioned that the family is paying, at least upfront, is paying the monthly deposit and that sort of thing to secure the property. Is there any backstop with typically with the insurance company in case things go wrong or the renter is not paying or that sort of thing? Does that help the owner?
I've only heard of like 1 or 2 stories of where the insurance client ran out of money and didn't move out, but those are we all hear nightmare stories no matter what industry you're in. But in terms of lowering deposit, there are insurance programs out there where you can buy vacation rental insurance to supplement the lease. That way you feel covered and you can charge the insurance company for it. For me, the baseline is, how do I be easy to do business with? Right? They want lower deposits, but I want to reduce the risk. How? You lower deposits and you add insurance to it, right? And for our instant booking, I want to be easy to do business with. I want to be able to have my guests do instant booking. How do they do that? Well, we put in a system that checks IDs, signs lease agreements, do selfies, do credit card deposits, all automated without lifting a finger. Again, that's another way to do business with. So I challenge people, if you want to be successful in this space, concentrate on being easy to do business with. If you see an obstacle, find out how to iron it, because there's products out there to fix it.
That's a tremendous piece of advice, Vivian. Thank you so much for that. One last question, and that is, you've obviously done a lot of work on your businesses. You mentioned you come from an operations background, so you've looked at it from that perspective. Sitting where you are today, we always have things as entrepreneurs that we would like to do, right? With one more thing, just one more thing. So sitting here today with your magic wand, what's that one more thing for you and your businesses?
I am totally obsessed with AI. And not just using ChatGPT to write emails and stuff. I'm talking AI agents, building a GPT. There's a lot of people that are always asking, like, hey, Vivian, can I pick your brain? Can I pick your brain? Okay, well, what if I threw all of my training assets together in one place and built a GPT? I could totally do that. And I'm excited for what AI holds in the future. And I think that, yeah, there's a huge concentration in using AI to build my business further.
That's terrific. That's really forward looking and forward thinking, and I commend you for it a lot.
Yeah.
Vivian, thank you so much for your time today. We've talked about a lot of different things. We've talked about crew homes. We've talked about Hestia 360 and the certification program. We've learned about you and your story, and we've learned about your clients. One last thing that you'd just like to tell the audience, what would that be?
Well, one last thing. I mean, gosh, you've already talked to me for like 30 minutes. I have so much to say. I would say look for the silver lining in everything you do, because sometimes things may seem on the surface to be a negative thing, but it could actually be something very positive for you. It's all about perspective. So for me, for a long time, I was attached to my hair as my identity, but turns out it's my brand.
That's a terrific outlook. I mean, it takes so much to be an entrepreneur and to be able to do it with a positive outlook. Really, I'm sure your team recognizes it and your customers recognize it. Thank you for your thank
Thanks, John.